The Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Shady Rays. Go to shadyrays.com and use promo code SGPN for 50% off of two or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. And we're also brought to you by our NBA Playoff Survivor Challenge. We're giving away $250 in cash and a $100 SGPN merch store gift card. Sign up exclusively on the SGPN app. Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is Friday, April 14th, currently 12:15 on the East Coast. Here to talk about our player props for the play-in tournament tonight and also for the weekend. And I got Mike here, the newest co-host on the Propcast. It's my main man, Chris B. Cabin on Twitter. Chris, what's going on, my man? Hey, this is why I brought you on. You went 3-1 in the first episode that we did. I went 1-3. That's why I brought you on, my man.
Hey, I appreciate the warm welcome, and we're not going to talk about the record. We're just going to try to keep it going because we know how that works, man. You've been doing this for a long time, so I expect the bounce back from you, and hopefully I can remain consistent, man. We can keep giving out some winners, but I'm doing good, excited to be here, man. We got a lot of meaningful basketball. I'm excited to break it down. This, to me, it really feels like Christmas. Like I walk around with a smile on my face knowing that we have meaningful playoff basketball, and I live for this, man. I live for it.
I agree, my man. I know, like the regular season sometimes gets to be a little bit of a grind, and then we get to the last week of the regular season. We're just trying to get to some meaningful basketball, I should say. Guys be sitting out and load management, all that bullshit. But we got to the playoffs, man. We're right there. I know we have 2 games left here tonight to determine the 8 seeds, and then we got the game ones tipping off Saturday early afternoon. And then games all the way, obviously, through the weekend for the NBA playoffs. So, quickly recapping what we did last episode. I did not have a great night. I went 1-3. Did get home with Alex Caruso in the first quarter. That was pretty easy. Jakob Poeltl, I know you and I both had him. He let us down a little bit. CJ didn't get over his assist. I know news came out after the game. You and I were talking offline here a little bit, Chris, that he was dealing with a hand injury. And then my last player prop was Nikola Vucevic. I got hooked on that one. He finished up with 13 rebounds and 14 points in that game. Fell about a basket short in that game. But hey, it's a brand new day. Hopefully we can continue to hear. Chris, you had a great day, my man. You want to walk us through your 3-1 night from the last episode that we recorded?
Yeah, sure. So we, like you said, we both got Jakob Poeltl was just really out there doing cardio. If he wasn't trying to score the ball, in retrospect, might not have been the greatest play. I thought he would get a couple putbacks, but he didn't. Yeah. You see Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam shoot all the shots on that team, which I think we should have probably expected. But everything else, like you said, kind of, came through. Patrick Williams went over his 7.5 points. I think he shot 10 attempts, and I really like that. The volume. So I talked about liking that. And then I also was on Vucevic rebounds specifically. Talked about, low total. So, yeah, I know that cashed as well. And then the other player prop was Lou Dort. Lou Dort, under 5.5 rebounds. He's now 13-0 to that number. Talked about him, being primarily assigned to Brandon Ingram. So he did get 5, which is the most that he's had. So we didn't need any more, but we did, close it out and go 3-1. So hopefully we can replicate it. Let's just see if we can do it again.
Yeah, yes, sir. So we got 2 games, like I mentioned, tonight in the association to determine who are going to be the 8 seeds in the obviously the playoffs for their respective conferences. And then we got game ones tipping off, like I mentioned, Saturday and Sunday. So we'll kind of go through the same way that we usually do. We'll give you 3 player props each, and then we'll wrap it up with a best bet, whether it's for tonight or whether it's for the weekend. So definitely meaningful basketball is here. Stars hopefully are going to be shining, and hopefully we can have a good night for our player props for this first weekend of the NBA playoffs. But before we dive into it, let me tell everyone about Shady Rays. It's almost that summertime. I know you a lot of guys who will be planning your vacations, whether you're going to the beach, whether you're going to Cancun. Like maybe 2 teams will be tonight from the play-in tournaments. And you got to get some new shades. You got to check out Shady Rays. Kick off the new year with new gear built to last. Our friends over at Shady Rays have you covered from the sun to the slopes with premium polarized shades, customizable snow goggles, and much more. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers a world-class product that's just as good as any expensive pair that we've worn. Durable frames, extremely clear optics for outdoor adventures. That's not all. Shady Rays offers the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by lost and broken replacements. If you lose or even break your pair, even on day one, they told us they're going to send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. Wear your Shady Rays with confidence because they have your back long after your purchase. With Shady Rays, you can look good and feel good. Today, they have donated over 20 million meals to fight hunger with Feeding America. If you don't love them, exchange it for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop with Shady Rays. Their team always has your back. So all you got to do for our listeners, if you want 50% off of 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses, just use promo code SGPN at shadyrays.com. Again, shadyrays.com. Use that promo code SGPN for 50% off of 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 200,000 people. Also, the NBA Survivor Challenge. Like I mentioned, make sure to check out our NBA Playoff Survivor Challenge. Completely free to enter. The winner gets $250 in cash, a $100 SGPN gift card, and it's exclusively on the SGPN app. All right, Chris, let's get into it, my man. Let's get into these player props. I'll let you lead it off. What's your first player prop for either tonight or the weekend?
Yeah, let's go in. Let's go in order. If at least the way my brain works better when we function that way. So I have a couple for this weekend. A couple for a couple for. I think I got 2 for tomorrow, one for and one for today as well. A couple for tomorrow for the later games, but tonight specifically, if I'm going back to one that we kind of talked about already, and it's for a lot of the same reasons. I'm looking at Vucevic again, and I'm looking at his rebounds. We have another team that rebounds. I will say Toronto doesn't rebound the ball as well as this Miami Heat team did. Even though Miami didn't rebound the ball well at all in that last game against Atlanta, I do expect them to rebound the ball a little bit better. But to me, it's the total. We see an extremely low total. I think it opened at like 209. It's already down like 208, 207 and a half on some books already as well. So to me, that tells me that the books are expecting, a lot of misses again. We know that Vucevic is the best rebounder for the Chicago Bulls. I expect them to be down there battling with Bam. He posted double-digit rebounds in 13 of his last 16 meetings against the Heat, averaging 11.8, dating back to the start of the 2019-20 season. So this isn't, anything new for him. That includes 11 of 13 games against Bam Adebayo, averaging 11.8. And this season, posted games of 17, 12, and 10 rebounds. I expect them to, get to that threshold again tonight with, some poor shooting from the Miami Heat. We know that they're typically a boom or bust type team, specifically from the three-point line. They get a lot of their points, from the perimeter. And if those shots aren't going in, I do expect Vucevic to be able to pull down 11 rebounds for us tonight. Best line I saw right before starting the show, was minus 113 on FanDuel. So Vucevic over the 10.5 rebounds will be my first look that I want to share today.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue against it, man. It's something similar that I know Toronto, we've talked a lot about throughout the season, that opposing centers just had that success against Toronto because, or before Jakob Poeltl got there, they really didn't have that traditional big man where centers would have a lot of success rebounding the basketball. There was no secret about it. But I think that for tonight, when we talk about what we kind of saw for the Miami Heat lack thereof rebounding success, especially against a team like Atlanta, I think Vucevic at 10.5, it seems a little conservative here. So look, if it's not broken, don't try to fix it like our guy Ski says, right? So yeah, definitely I could get behind this Nikola Vucevic over 10.5 rebounds here tonight.
Capella also had
Yeah.
20 plus in the last game, if last thing I wanted to add.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think the offensive rebounds will be there as well. I don't know what's going on with Miami team. I think that's a conversation for later. But I think asking Vucevic to get 11 rebounds here, I don't think it's a big deal, my man. All right. So also, I will stay in the same game here with you. I know I gave out Alex Caruso over 1.5 steals and blocks. It was at minus 125 when we talked about it on our last episode, Chris. Now it's all the way up to minus 175. So the books have caught up there. So I had to pivot a little bit. I'm gonna go with Patrick Williams here tonight over 1.5 steals and blocks. I'm gonna pivot to him. He's been really good coming off of the bench for this Chicago Bulls team, and there's something that kind of I think when you talk about when they brought in Alex Caruso and Patrick Beverly this season, that defensive intensity went up for the Chicago Bulls, especially since the All Star break. And you really, if you watch that game against the Toronto Raptors, I know the missed free throws had a lot to do with it, but if you just watch their defense in that fourth quarter, where guys like Zach LaVine were even buying in on the defensive side, when we know traditionally he doesn't really play a lot of defense, but when you have anchors like Alex Caruso and Patrick Beverly, people buy in. I think Patrick Williams coming off the bench, he's really been closing out some of these games with the Chicago Bulls closing unit. His number right now is at 1.5 for steals and blocks combined at minus 105. Definitely, again, shop around for the best number. But if we kind of go back to the last game against the Toronto Raptors, in that game, he had 2 steals and 2 blocks in 25 minutes that he played. Go back to the regular season against Detroit in their last game, 1 steal, 1 block. 4 out of the last 5 games that Patrick Williams has gone or played in, he's gone over this projection of 1.5 in 4 out of those 5 games. So I think for Patrick Williams coming off his bench, being another defensive guy, I think he can definitely get over this projection here tonight. And again, Chris, it's kind of going back to the similar boat we saw in that game against whether it was the Atlanta and Miami game that had a lower total. There are people expecting it to be a rock fight or a highly defensive battle game. Those steals and blocks are going to be there. So I'm going to back Patrick Williams here tonight over 1.5 blocks and steals combined. He's recorded a steal in 4 straight games against the Miami Heat. In his last game on March 18th against his Heat team, he had 2 blocks and 1 steal. So I think asking him to get over 1.5 should be a tall order. So that's going to be my first player prop here, Chris.
I like it, if I like it a lot, man. I think just to kind of add on to what you were saying, I'm processing it. And I think, he's going to draw more than likely. He's going to be out there. And I thought about going back to his points prop as well, but he's going to be out there, just because he's going to be probably the primary defender, right? When you think about DeRozan and LaVine, you want to kind of conserve those guys as much as you possibly can so that they can be effective on the offensive end. So I do think Patrick Williams will probably go over the 25 minutes that he played in the last game as well. Is the only thing that I'll add, which will equal, more time on the floor equals more opportunity to get those blocks and steals. So I would absolutely agree with that.
All right. Glad you're on board with me. All right, let's get over to your next player prop. Chris, what do you got for the people?
So let's go to I think Saturday afternoon, maybe evening game. I'm not sure what time it's going to be played, but I'm looking at. I want to go to the Kings and the Warriors game. This should be a really really good game. We got an extremely high total, and I'm looking at Steph in this one. I like his points, man. Right now they're listed at 30.5 on some books, but you can still get 29.5. 29.5, not too much juice at minus 115 currently on DraftKings is the best number that I saw when I was kind of looking through. So here's the breakdown, so 33 points and 47 points in 2 home games versus the Kings throughout this season, throughout the regular season. They played 4 times, but the last game you can kind of throw away because the Kings didn't really play their starters late. It was actually like last week. So not big minutes or a meaningful game at all there. So 2 and 4 to the number, but he has crushed this number. Like I said, 33 and 47 in 2 of those games. And the other game that he didn't score over 29.5 was a game that they had Wiggins. So a lot more offense being kind of distributed amongst the core group for the Golden State Warriors. Wiggins will be back for this game, but Kerr's already come out and said that they don't expect him to play in big minutes, probably try to get him to ease back into, the flow of things, and he'll have some leeway there. So expecting about 20 to 25 minutes. So that's more opportunity for a guy like Steph. And if you don't know, Steph has kind of carried this team on the road throughout the season. 29.5 points is what he's averaged on 49% shooting and 40.5% shooting from the 3-point line as well. I don't think, that the role players for Golden State will step up and play as well as they have done at home specifically, right? We talking about the Dante DiVincenzo's, the Jonathan Kumingas, the Moody's of the world. I don't think that those guys play as well. And another like interesting stat that I looked at, so I talked about the total just a tad bit being 239.5 points. So in road games this season, when the total is 235 or higher,
Mhm.
Steph had a streak, from January the 6th to March the 17th, so a little over 2 months, where he had 8 consecutive games where he scored between 28 and 50 points in road games. The total was 235 or higher, right? I mean, it just kind of goes to show how bad their defense was and how much they had to rely on him to kind of carry them. And I think we see that right now.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say is the Kings rank kind of middle of the pack in defense as far as allowing points to point guards, about 14 for 15. But they did finish the season last 7 games allowing the 6 most points to point guards. And it's this is what we live for. This is what they live for. And I think we see a big performance from Steph to kind of start the playoffs and see if they can kind of steal one, because they are 1 point favorites or 1 point dogs, depending on where you're shopping for the number.
Yeah.
So, close game. I think Steph goes over to 29.5 points, because the Kings aren't necessarily, the greatest defensive team, but we know that they
Yeah.
can score. And I think that Golden State needs its offense as well.
I mean, I'm not gonna take an under with Steph Curry. It's over nothing with Steph Curry, man. I mean, look, the guy's a MVP. He's won. I mean, he's the best shooter that we've ever seen. And when it comes to the playoffs, Chris, especially when we talk about game ones, those are where the games where the stars really shine. And I think Steph Curry, I mean, you laid out the numbers there beautifully and all the stats and trends. And um, I think that it's going to be a difficult time for the Kings, I think, throughout this series, in particular in game one, to really stay with Steph Curry. Again, we know that he can knock down the 3-point shot. He can get to the basket. He can get to the free throw line. He's a 90+% free throw shooter. So, again, I wouldn't be shocked if he dropped another 40 points in this first game. And again, look, the total is also indicative of that, right? We see a total of what, 238 and a half right now. Maybe it's come down a little bit or gone up a little bit. I haven't checked the updated number, but it's we're expecting this game, or at least the books are, to be a very, very high scoring game. So someone, the points are going to come, and we know that the lights are on and it's time to shine, Steph Curry steps into that role. There's no doubt about that in my mind. So yeah, definitely endorse this one as well. All right, for my next player prop, I'm gonna go over to that game between the Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets. Actually, the first one that we're gonna see on Saturday, 1 o'clock Eastern start. So I'm gonna go with Joel Embiid in this matchup. I'm gonna take his rebounds over. That number is currently
I got that one too.
all right, there we go.
I
All
love
right,
it.
so we got to have one agreement for sure. So over 11 and a half rebounds. That one comes in at plus money, currently over on DraftKings. So definitely shop around and get the best number like we preach all the time. But I think it just kind of goes back to me, for me, Chris, and I think you're going to agree with this as well because it's on your list here as well, that the Brooklyn Nets, I think, were either the worst rebounding team or the second worst rebounding team since the All-Star break, since obviously the trade with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving went down. I'm trying to pull up the exact numbers here on their rebounding since All-Star break.
So I
Post all.
got so
Yeah,
just
we
because I
got.
already got it done, I think what I saw was the Nets finished. So I got the Nets finished the final 7 games of the season, giving up the 7th most rebounds to centers. But it's been, like you said, it's been a problem for them all season. They finished the season allowing the 2nd most rebounds to centers. And post All-Star break, Brooklyn was also 5th worst rebounding team in the league. Should set up for Embiid in a really good matchup in a low scoring game. Another total that's extremely low at 214. So yeah, but take it back over.
No. I mean, that's why we do this together, man. So, and I'm just looking at post All-Star break. They allowed the most rebounds. They were number 30th as far as opponent rebounds. And then Brooklyn on the season, they allowed about 15.4 rebounds per contest to that center position. That was bottom 4th in this league. And you kind of look at his game log. It's kind of been inconsistent for him, but I think a lot of those games may have been blowouts before, either Kyrie or KD or James Harden were there. I know there was only an X amount of games those three played together, but at least this in the 2 games that he did play this season, in the latest game, which was February 11th, he did have 13 rebounds in that game. Going back to last season, there was a game of 12 rebounds, but prior to that, I mean, if you looked at it, this goes back to 2021, 12, 16, 13, 17, 12, 15, 19. I think it's just a fact that both Chris, you and I are looking at this where, number one, the Nets are a really bad rebounding team, and centers have been the ones that have been beneficiary of them being a bad rebounding team. And we know that Joel Embiid is going to get the rebound. So I know he did finish the season with only averaging 10.2 rebounds, but again, this is a possibility where I 100% see him getting 12 plus rebounds here in this first game against the Brooklyn Nets. So over 11 and a half rebounds at plus 105. Chris, anything you want to add to that?
Just from the opposite side, if you talked about Embiid and you talked about the Nets' lack of rebounding, but I also looked at it from like do we expect the Nets to come out here and be on fire and like just make a lot of shots? Absolutely not, right? Me and you've talked about this offline, multiple times. If the Nets just struggle to score on the road, right? We looked at those home road splits, right? So I did a little deep dive in it from that aspect, kind of taking Joel Embiid out of it and kind of looking at Brooklyn and just their lack of scoring, right? We know that they're a 3-point shooting team, not a lot of post presence. So Brooklyn actually shot the sixth worst field goal percentage from two after the All-Star break when they were on the road at 55%, and they ranked 29th in shots at the rim as far as field goal percentage. They shot just 27% after the All-Star break in road games when they were shooting at the rim. Per cleaning the glass when I checked it earlier. So when they get into the rim, they're not making a lot of shots, and all of those should create even more rebound opportunities in a game that we see extremely low total in. So I love it. I'm glad that we were on the same page with this one. Joel Embiid over 11 and a half rebounds. Like you said, it's plus money on some books right now, so definitely shop around because you'll find it at not plus money too.
Yeah, 100%. All right, before we continue here, let me tell everyone about Underdog Fantasy. We're brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is a great place to get down on fantasy and player props all year long. Underdog Fantasy has your favorite NBA, NHL, and MLB daily games. Plus, they're already doing best ball drafts for the 2023 NFL season. Head over to underdogfantasy.com and use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus of up to $100. That's underdogfantasy.com, promo code SGPN. All right, Chris, let's keep it rolling here, my man. So we both agree on Joel Embiid. You want to get into your third player prop here? What do you got? Or did you already give three?
So that was the third one.
Okay,
because we're both on Joel Embiid.
Okay, so before then we get into best bets, I'll give out my next player prop. I'm gonna say in the rebounding market here, Chris, I'm going to go to that Kings and Warriors game as well. I'm going to go with Kevon Looney, man, over 10 and a half rebounds. I think that you Jefferson, he threw me off. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So I think that number one, we can't talk about the Sacramento Kings lack of big men, at least in the interior defense, where we talk about it's Sabonis, right? I mean, if you just take a look at what Kevon Looney has done against the Kings in this season alone, or at least over his last three games. So the last game was April 7th, obviously, of this season. He had 16 rebounds in that game. He had 10 rebounds in the game back in November. And then the second match of this season, he also had 13 rebounds in that contest. So I think, number one, we talk about another game with a very high total. That we're going to see shots being put up. I think the pace is also going to be high in this game. When we talk about more shots, there's more rebounding opportunities. And I think something that, going back to last season, when the Warriors made their playoff run, I don't think Kevon Looney got enough credit for what he did in that series as far as being a rebounding anchor, being a guy that, created those second chances for the Golden State Warriors. And I think this is going to be a series where I think that Kevon Looney is going to have plenty of opportunities to get those rebounds, whether it's offensive rebounding or whether it's defensive rebounding. Kind of looking at the numbers for the Sacramento Kings, this season they did finish up as they allowed the 10th least rebounds to their opponents. But if we kind of take a look at what they gave up to the center position this season, Sacramento to that center position allowed 15 and a half rebounds to that starting to the center position. So at 10 and a half, it does seem like a big number for Kevon Looney here, Chris, but I think it's a big number for a reason. We talked about it, or I just talked about it. 2 out of his last 3 games, 13 and 16 in that third game. He did have double-digit rebounds, but he did finish up with 10 rebounds. He was 1 rebound short of getting over this projection. So I think this continues in this game between the Sacramento Kings and Golden State Warriors. I'm going to take Kevon Looney over 10.5 rebounds, especially at plus odds at plus 105 here, Chris.
Hey, I like him. I like it. I couldn't talk you off of it at all. I think the only thing I'll add is that that series is going to be great. I think we're going to get a really, really great series. I'm extremely excited to watch it. Hopefully, I don't plan on missing 1 second of it at all, honestly. But I'll add this. I think that like you said, the players that kind of coasted throughout the regular season, no matter what they were, great at or what we recognized them for. I think that starts to kind of come back around as we get to the playoffs. So Looney is known as one of the best rebounders in the playoffs last year. So I would not be able to talk you off of that. If I think with that pick, you also probably imply that Golden State is going to play some defense, and you think that the Kings will be able to probably miss a lot of those threes. We know that they shoot, more shot attempts than any team in the league as far as points per shots per 100 possessions. So it should create a lot of rebounding opportunities, and I expect them to be able to go down there and get them. I've watched the Kings struggle to rebound the ball, especially when they don't have Sabonis on the floor, so I like it.
Yeah, I agree. Before we get into best bets, I need a shout out to my guy Josh, man. He's our graphics guy over at SGPN. I see that I needed an overlay here, and this guy just gets it done within a minute. So we got a new overlay here with their Propcast on the NBA Gambling Podcast feed. But shout out to my guy Josh, man. Just an amazing guy to work with. So appreciate you, Josh. All right, so that's 3 player props each year. Chris, let's get into our best bets for this weekend. Obviously, we're going from Friday to Sunday. Our player props here. Lead us off. Best bet for this weekend.
So this is one I think a lot of people probably won't have on their radar, man. But I'm thinking I'm trying to get into the psychology of these players and kind of predict what I see going on, what I think is going to happen. And I see you, Capper, said he needs a Josh. I need a Josh as well. Shout out to Josh. But yeah, I'm going back. So in that same game, right, in that same Golden State Warriors game, traveling just up the street, I listened to the interview this morning with Steve Kerr, and he said that they were just going to bust up, right? They're not even taking a plane to Sacramento, not even flying up. But I think veteran experience comes into play in this game, and for that reason, I'm taking Keegan Murray. I'm taking Keegan Murray under 18 and a half points plus rebounds.
Okay.
Is my best bet at it. As my best bet. So it's not. This isn't necessarily based around a lot of statistics. I mean, I can tell you guys that he went 2-2 to the number. He did have a game where he had 21 points and 4 rebounds, and he had another game where he had 16 and 4. But I think the rebound number is just a tad bit too high. And honestly, I think there's a potential for Keegan Murray to get played off the floor. Golden State and what Steve Kerr does, reminds me a lot of what Bill Belichick does in the NFL when he finds that cornerback that he can kind of pick on. And I think Steve Kerr does that a lot as well. I think they try to isolate a guy like Keegan Murray, who's not known for his defense. He's a rookie and he's played really, really well. We know what he's done, exceptional. He broke the 3-point record for rookies, right? So if he's able to get out there and do that, then I think that he can go over this number. But I do expect some of those minutes to be some of his minutes to kind of be allotted to a guy like Kessler Edwards for more defensive, intensity to try to slow down some of these guys. So I look for Keegan Murray not to play his full allotment of minutes, and Kessler, like I said, guys like Kessler Edwards to kind of come in, step in. Keegan Murray finishes the game with 10 and 5. I'm totally fine, and he goes under this 18 and a half. And I like that as my best bet today. If I think like I said, experience comes into play, and Keegan Murray kind of takes a back seat, and kind of they rely more so on Sabonis and guys like De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk a little bit more.
I can talk you off of it, man. I mean, rookies, I think again, I don't have the stats to back this up, obviously, but it feels like when we get to the NBA playoffs, I know the NCAA tournaments, it's a different animal as well. But when we talk about the NBA playoffs and the intensity goes up, and maybe sometimes we see that these guys or the younger guys may be kind of a little deer in the headlights situation, right? It may take them a quarter to kind of adjust to it's the NBA playoffs. You have the defending champions coming into your building, in a building where we haven't seen a playoff game in I don't know how long for the Sacramento Kings, right?
2004, 18 years.
18 years. I mean, what were we doing 18 years ago? It's crazy to think about. Was Keegan Murray even born at that time?
Similac on his breath,
Yeah, so I think this might be a big moment for him. But again, you backed it up with the stats and trends there as well. I think this is going to be a game where we probably see this. We'll see the stars shine as far as Sacramento Kings, whether it's Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, Harrison Barnes has been in plenty of playoff games as well. I think those are the guys that really are going to have to rely on to score the basketball for the Sacramento Kings team. So yeah, definitely cannot talk you off of that one, my man. All right, for my best bet here, Chris, this might be a little square, man, but I was kind of wondering why this number was a little conservative. Jalen Brunson over 24 and a half points. Um, we don't know yet the status of Julius Randle. I don't see his name listed as far as any of the player props right now. But even if Julius Randle does play in this game, I'm not sure that he's going to be effective or, especially when talking about ankles, right? It's an injury that can really limit your movement sometimes, especially laterally and things like that. But I think the one player that does have a lot of playoff experience, I know the Knicks were in the playoffs 2 seasons ago when they were ousted by the Atlanta Hawks, but we talk about the run that Jalen Brunson had last season, especially without Luka Doncic in that series. I can think it was against the Utah Jazz, where he was just absolutely phenomenal for the Dallas Mavericks. He had games where he scored, he had a game of 41, 31. He had 3 games where exactly at 24 points. But now that he has this experience, I think the ball is definitely going to be in Jalen Brunson's hands for this New York Knicks team. You take a look at what he did against the Cavs in the last game of the regular season, or their last matchup of the regular season. On March 31st, he dropped a career high 48 points in that game against the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm not sold on this backcourt defense of the Cleveland Cavaliers, whether it's Donovan Mitchell or whether it's Darius Garland. We know their strength is in the front court with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. Jalen Brunson is the guy that can, number one, finish around the basket. He can knock down that mid-range jump shot. He can get to the free throw line, knock the free throw shots down, also hit the three-point shot. So I think that if at least in game one, if Knicks at least want to cover this number or even have the possibility of winning it outright, I think it's going to have to be on the back of Jalen Brunson here. So at 24 and a half, it is a little bit of juiced at minus 125 currently on DraftKings. So again, like we said, shop around for the best number. But I think Jalen Brunson comes out, takes his game by the horns, and I think that he's going to have a big scoring night for the New York Knicks in that game one against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I'm taking Jalen Brunson over 24 and a half as my best bet in this game here, Chris.
Hey, I like him. If I could not talk you off at all, I mean, throughout the entirety of the season, like you said, if you're going to beat the Cavs, you typically have to do it with a guard. You're not going to get a lot, from throwing the ball in the post and asking somebody to go into Cleveland at that, right, and score in the paint against guys like Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. So we've seen big games from guards throughout the season, and I think the other thing to mention too, is Isaac Okoro didn't finish the season off with the team, so he could be a little rusty. I mean, I think he's going to be available for this game, and I'm pretty sure he'll, most likely get the defensive assignment of guarding a guy like Jalen Brunson, but he could be a little rusty. And even if he's not, Jalen Brunson is elite offensively, and we know what he brings to that team. So I love him. I hope you cash it, man. I like the Brunson look a lot.
Yeah, I hope so, man. Jalen Brunson, he's been really good this season, especially I think that's the most underrated pickup that it's not being talked about enough for the New York Knicks. They finally made a good decision on signing one of these players after the struggles that they've had over the past, I don't know how many years. All right, man, that's going to do it for this episode of the Propcast. The player props we have from Friday to Sunday through the game ones for this weekend. Chris, anything else we need to mention before we get out of here, my man?
Nah, man. I think the only thing I'll mention, is if you like the Brunson look, could go one of two ways. If Randall gets ruled out, you might want to buy it now because that number probably will go up, like you said, But if he gets ruled in, then you could see it potentially tick down just a tad bit. But other than that, I think we did a pretty good job. Hopefully we can come back and give a recap where we swept the board, at least been profitable, and look forward to doing it all over again when we get the next opportunity.
Yeah, 100%. All right, make sure you guys follow Chris on Twitter at Crispy Cap'n, 2 P's, 2 N's in the Cap'n. I know he does a daily show on Twitter Spaces, so again, make sure to follow him. Does an absolutely phenomenal job of talking through the games on what he's betting and also the listeners that he does have on his show. So again, check him out daily. Goes around 5:30 Eastern, right, Chris?
Yep. Yes, sir. 5:30.
Yeah. Make sure to definitely check him out. And again, follow him on Twitter as well. Follow me on Twitter at SportsNerd824. This is the Propcast. I know we are talking about it on the NBA Gambling Podcast feed. It kind of goes hand in hand, but we do have our own feed for the Propcast. So make sure to subscribe to it, whether you listen on Spotify, whether it's Apple. And we're going to be here all playoffs long for the NBA playoffs and our player props. All right, again, last thing, make sure to get into that Survivor Challenge for the contest we are having at SGPN. It's on the app. Just make sure to download the app, SGPN app, and get in there. It's a Survivor Challenge, $250 cash to the winner and $100 SGPN gift card to the winner as well. All right, we'll be back next week for the Propcast. Till then, good luck with your bets this weekend. Let's break these books off and let it ride.